that let's not talk human resources, let's talk branding and why people would want to work here. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
And what you're saying is that, and be honest here, you're saying that from you, because you talk at a lot of conferences, you're saying that a lot of HR people don't think marketing, don't read marketing books, don't talk to the marketers in their organization, don't think of it as an exciting concept about why are we different and why would people want to work here. Would that be right?
That's exactly right, Mike. I mean, I think the HR and recruiting space has become so homogenized. Even you even look at the social networking stuff. I mean, most people, you see 150 blogs saying exactly the same thing, and I'm going, okay, now we've read 150 blogs saying exactly the same thing. Why not get outside of the recruiting blog space and pick up a book from interactive marketing guy from Apple or Starbucks or wherever. Read that guy's book. Go to a marketing conference and listen to what they're saying. Look at what the e-commerce people are doing in terms of SEO and ad buying. If you're building a search function, look at what global supply chain organizations are doing. I mean, there are a lot of...
Sorry, but so tell us. Let's put your money where your mouth is. Recently in Adidas, what have you done using Web 2.0? Because you're in charge. One of your roles is you're in charge of and correct me if I'm wrong, you're in charge of talent acquisition, but also of new media, of using technology to attract the best and the brightest and those that understand Adidas and have a passion to work for you people. What have you done? Take us through it here in New Zealand, because we're not completely up with America on how Web 2.0, if you even still call it that, can help us and to build great campaigns to find people. Can you give us just a few examples where the rubber meets the road for you?
Yeah, and I'll break I'll break it down a little bit, because there's sort of the overarching brand, and then there's marketing execution, and a lot of times they're confused. And basically, once you have your brand positioning and once you've built your collateral around it, then how do you sort of disseminate that message out into the marketplace? And there's literally 1,000. You've been in PR, Mike, and there's literally 1,000 different ways to do that. So when people ask me for advice, usually the first thing I ask them is, do you know how your consumers, meaning, in our case, being in the talent acquisition arena, our candidates, how they're consuming media? Do we know what their behavior is? Do we know where they're going, who they're being influenced by? Because if you know that, then you can deliver a message to them and target them. And when you talk about Web 2.0 or social media, I think there's a lot of hype, a lot of I think false assumptions about it. So what Steve and I sat down and did is we tried to make sense of it all. We broke it down into 4 pillars, really going from extremely high touch interactiveness with our recruiting team to very low touch, delivering advertisements in a targeted way so we can let technology and agencies do the work. And then I think the most sort of the one with the most nemesis, which is kind of the social network. What are we doing there, and how are we engaging with audience? And then the last pillar is really reputation management. So how are we monitoring what's being said about us? So when we look at those high touch tools, we call them the 6-degree tools, and you guys, I'm sure, are all familiar with these. It's the LinkedIns of the world. It's the Zings of the world. It's the Jigsaws of the world. It's really these places that house candidate information, and where your recruiting teams can get in there, mine information, and network with people one-on-one. It's high touch. They have to identify the talent. They have to reach out. They have to engage. And one, you have to look at, what tools have the target group that you're going after as an organization. Two, you have to make sure your recruiting team is trained to be able to have those conversations effectively. And I think you need to have a strategy of investing and divesting quickly. So when you're tracking and monitoring the effectiveness of those tools, the adoption of your recruiters, and you're not seeing the ROI on it, not having sort of the old school mentality of organizations of, hey, I like my account rep at Zing, and so, or I like my account rep at LinkedIn, even though I have zero recruiter adoption, and I'm going to keep investing. So I really look at that as sort of the sales side of the organization. On the other end of the spectrum, when you start talking about recruitment or targeted online advertising, I think this is where we've seen one of the biggest shifts. And the reason I'm clumping this into Web 2.0 and social media, and I've mentioned this at a conference, and I will mention in some cases specific names of companies. I'm not promoting one over another, but in this case, we decided to partner with an organization called Entice Labs, and I think they're deploying some of the most advanced uses of technology. It's not stuff that's new to the world. It's just stuff that's new to the recruiting space. So basically what they're doing is they're looking at what the e-commerce space has done, and they're trying to bridge the gap for the HR and recruiting space. So back in the day when we did targeted advertising with Google, any of you that's done that before, basically you needed to go on and create an online ad account. You needed to build a massive list of keywords. You needed to come up with your ad copy that you were going to deploy out there for your AdWord buys. You had to set your budget, and then you had to monitor and track how that was doing. And I would say the worst part of that is when people clicked on your ads and you landed them on your career site, you have a passive candidate now that you're asking to go through a 20-part application process. What Entice has done is they looked at that challenge, and they said, wait, we can automate all of this, and we can deploy the latest technology, and we can go across all ad networks. So what they've done is they take your job descriptions, they scrape it for keywords, they go out and buy the ad space across every different network. So you're not just in Google or Yahoo. You're across as many networks as you can imagine. They build an engagement page, so you're not just landing someone on your career site and putting them through a big application process. You're landing them on a page that's highly relevant to them. And then they're using contextual targeting, and this is where social networking comes in. So while someone may say, hey, you need to be on Facebook. Well, what does that mean? There's 1,000 ways to be on Facebook. You can buy ads on Facebook. You could post something to someone's wall. You can start a group. You can start your fan page on Facebook. Well, what we do is we just go out and we have technology that scrapes profiles across, the 400 million users, finds the keywords from those profiles that match the roles we're trying to recruit for, deliver a target advertisement right into that person's profile when they're in there. And one of the key differences it's been a shift that's just happened on the online ad space, and this is really brand new stuff. Like most HR recruiting people probably are not really familiar with this, but in the past, you had ad agencies and e-commerce companies, they had to buy ad space individually from each of these companies. They've just moved the whole space to an online ad exchange. This is a major sort of evolution in online ad buying, because now it works like the stock market, and you can buy ad space real time. All these companies buy into it, and now you're bidding. So you can target someone and buy ad space real time and then deliver your brand message to them. So now I take my high-level brand message, I boil that down into really compelling imagery, really compelling copywriting. Now I scrape someone's profile. I deliver a target advertisement into their profile. So I'm looking for an electrochemical or electromechanical engineer that can build a ball that when you kick it, it tells you the velocity that it's going and the distance it's traveled. So I need an electromechanical engineer, someone who's absolutely passionate about sports and someone who can not only build a gadget but also build the software on it. And so I happen to find this guy's profile that shows me as an engineering degree, electromechanical engineering degree. I see that his hobbies are, building gadgets in his basement and playing basketball. And now, boom, an advertisement comes up with Kevin Garnett sweating, veins popping out, jamming a ball through a hoop, saying, how would you like to build my coach for this guy? And I'm really kind of watering that down into really bad copywriting right now. And I actually built an ad like this and hired an electromechanical engineer in 2 weeks using this technology, which took us 6 months the year before. And the guy was absolutely blown away. Then not only that, when he clicks on the ad, the engagement page that pops up that he sees happened to be a press release, a live press viewing of the manager of this team talking about my coach, the product this guy would be building. And then it said, how would you like to work for this team? And then we showed some advertisements, pictures of the village, gave him a click apply button. So all he had to do was submit his resume, 2 seconds, boom, got his resume in 2 weeks and hired.
Okay.
So
yeah.
That's where the online advertising space has gone.
So just on that, because you're a massive global company, is that quite expensive for smaller companies? That type of campaign you're talking about, is that quite costly?
It depends, and I know that's a lame answer, and that's a political answer, but it depends on a lot of things. I mean, job boards, from our experience, what we were seeing is companies have become addicted to them, and they were buying sort of big global contracts, or even little companies were spending all their money with a 60 job package, and every recruiter in the company is saying, I'm not getting any talent with these, yet they're not shifting the funds into more effective uses of advertising. With this type of advertising, you can set the budget, but you do have to have because online ad buying, I mean, you can buy 200 impressions, or you can buy 5 million impressions. Now there is a science, I mean, I shouldn't say a science, a bit of an art to, how many impressions you need to buy, versus how many clicks you're going to get versus how many applications you're going to end up getting. But I would say this type of advertising, it tends to work best when you group jobs. So if Mike, if you said I got to hire, 5 PR people with a similar background, and it was a small agency, and you wanted to spend a few $1,000s over the course of a month or 2 months, I would say that would be a relatively effective campaign. So we're not talking multi-millions of dollars. Now, I hear this argument all the time, and yet in a lot of countries that are less developed, that aren't deploying this technology, they're completely dependent on external search, and they're spending tens of thousands of dollars, and they're afraid to pull that back in-house. And we've even seen this at Adidas. We've started deploying. I mean, we're not deploying this in every market around the world. I mean, we're still working on that. We're still rolling this out, but we have markets that don't get it yet, and